Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jennifer Hargrave. I'm the owner of Hargrave Family Law, and I am so excited to have you here today. And it is an honor and privilege to introduce you to Kim Griffith. Kim is the owner and founder of the Wave Institute. She is a certified life coach. I have had the privilege of working with Kim over the past couple of years, and she has taught me so much about how to stay calm in the midst of chaos and uncertainty. And so I wanted to share her with all of you so you can learn a little something about, get some good takeaways about how to be that source of calm in the midst of the chaos and the craziness, because I think our natural tendency is to get angry and frustrated and triggered. And we're going to talk about that today. So first, Kim, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come and share your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I have a little more time than usual, so I'm happy to do it. I'm so blessed that you're doing this and that we get to share this information with people who really need it right now. And we do too, so it's great.
Absolutely. That's great. I do want to let our viewers know that I have posted a link to your website so people can learn more about you and can get in touch with you after this is over. I've also included a link to a resource page on my law firm's website where we have important information for people who are co-parenting or in a relationship that is broken. And of course, this is a time that exacerbates that. So, so y'all feel free to click on that and download important information. All right, as we get started today, oh, and I also want to say, we will have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of this. So go ahead and put your questions up as we're talking. If things pop in your head, you can give us a question and we'll make sure we reserve time for that at the end. When the webinar is over, you're going to get an email with a link so you can download the webinar, and you're welcome to share it with whomever you'd like. But I think right now, let's go ahead and get started and talk about why we are here today. How can you help us stay calm in the midst of chaos and uncertainty?
Well, yeah, I think before we go right into the solution, it's just validating why we are challenged right now. I mean, we always have day-to-day stresses, but this is really taking it up about 10 notches with our stress. And so we're in such a new period here. So like my friend texted me last night, there's no, I don't have a reference for a pandemic, which is so true. So we are definitely walking around stressed and uncertain with everything that's going on. Our kids are in school differently. We don't know about our loved ones. We're personally feeling unsafe a little in our own skin, and financially we've been hit. So it's definitely a time where we are going to get a little triggered.
Yeah, I know. I'm lucky because I'm lucky. I'm grateful that I have four other people in my household. So I'm not dealing with the isolation, but I know a lot of people are. And I know also I am feeling isolated and cut off from my parents and from friends and the community of loved ones that, I usually rely on to help keep me calm during these times.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about this later, but we're hardwired for connection. We are connecting beings. We are meant to connect. So this is definitely stretching us.
Absolutely. What, I hear the word, it's a common thing to talk about triggers, right? And I certainly see triggers easily in other people. When I'm in a settlement conference and with a husband and wife who are going through a divorce, that is a circumstance that lends itself to being triggered. But I know in my own life, there are definitely triggers that cause me to react in certain ways. And I think in our public lives together, we hear so much about triggers. It's a real catchword these days. In your studies and the work that you do, can you define what a trigger is and what's going on with us physiologically?
Absolutely. It is it's a physical response to a person, a place, an event. It could be a thought, a smell, anything. And it creates an emotional reaction, a strong emotional reaction that puts us in protective or defensive mode. And what's really happening is an unconscious flashback, putting us into a time in the past where we were treated in a certain way that made us feel unsafe, either emotionally or physically. And we weren't able to get what we needed at the time. Somebody wasn't there to help us make sense of it or process our emotions. And it's challenging. And so we make up beliefs like I'm not good enough, and I'm not this enough, and I'm not safe enough, which feels really true at the time. And we cope, right? We create parts of us that cope and manage, but those emotions are still there. So you have a present day time, right? And all of a sudden you're getting somebody looks at you wrong, or somebody's interrupting you, or somebody's too close to you right now, and all of a sudden you're in trigger land. You're triggered. You're in a state of fight, flight, and freeze. And I wanted to share really quick with you. This helped me when I learned this. It made me feel like I'm not crazy. Okay, but, I'm not able to show up the way I want to, and it feels uncontrollable, and it really is. So Daniel Siegel is great. He's a great resource if you want to learn more about this, but he does the hand model that shows us exactly what's happening to our brain and body and why we get so triggered. Imagine this is your brain, and this is the side view, and this is the neocortex. It's the front part of your brain. This is where we think rational, we make good decisions, we find higher solutions that work. This is the amygdala. This is the middle part of the brain where we process all emotion. And this is the brainstem, that primitive survival mode, fight, flight, and freeze place. And when something happens around us, it goes right through the amygdala and decides right then, am I safe? Am I okay? If it is, then it's the neocortex stays online and we're calm and we're rational. But if it feels like it's unsafe, even if it's a perceived threat, boop, offline, the neocortex goes, and we go right, flight, and freeze, and we're walking around with our lid flipped, and that's what's happening right now, including me.
That's where we get the phrase. Then I flip my lid. That's a nicer way. I hear it a lot said a lot the other way. I flip my something else, but that's interesting. I like that visual. One of the things that occurs to me is that, I think I know what makes me angry and what makes me feel safe. But a lot of times I don't really know what I'm reacting to, right? I have a very strong reaction and I may blame somebody else for it. But the truth is there's something else going on inside of me. So what is that about?
Well, that is what I just explained. It is definitely triggering some part of us that needs connection and attention. And we'll talk about that, but it needs attention. It needs some integration where it's setting off a part of us that is making us feel very unsafe, even if it's a perceived threat. And so you're not aware of it. It's very unconscious. And so the goal, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, is becoming more aware of what is really going on underneath the trigger. I mean, we're so used to looking, if you would just stop doing that, I would feel better, right? And you really would, that would be much easier, but that's not really how it works, right?
So I've heard another phrase, and we've not talked about this, but a term called amygdala hijack, right? Which is those things in our past that are hijacking our amygdala. We don't even know that it's happening. But boy, you can sure see it in the pattern of behaviors, right?
You absolutely can. And it happens all the time in schools with kids and learning. And, we want them to learn, but their lid is kind of flipped and they're not online all the way. And it's very challenging to learn when you're in that state.
Okay, so I'm gonna confide something to you. Okay, when I'm in that heightened state and my lid is flipped, right? In that moment, I'm feeling pretty powerful. There's a payoff for that. So why do we need to be concerned about that? What is the impact of being triggered? What does that have on our own well-being?
Well, I think we can all really ask that. I would encourage everybody listening to ask that question for themselves. What is the impact? And in my experience in my coaching, even in the corporate world and in homes, and there is an impact, and it causes relationships to be in chaos. There's a lot of negative energy that plays out, things don't flow, and there's an actual impact on our physical well-being when we are constantly in that state. Even if it gives you a little boost of energy, if we're constantly in that state, it wreaks havoc on our well-being and our health and well-being and our relationships.
And it makes us more vulnerable to illness, right?
Absolutely. And I don't know how much time we have, but there's a really great study out there called the ACE study, Adverse Childhood Experience Study. And it is an awesome study that shows the correlation between traumatic events, or not even necessarily traumatic. It's where we felt disconnection and we felt unsafe, even if it's just emotional. And the correlation with health risks, chronic disease, violence, all of that increases. So if you're interested in that, check that out. It's really
a lot to dig into. The other thing I wanted to just have you speak a little bit about is how the impact of triggers on other people. What happens to others when we're triggered?
Right. Well, if we think about when we're triggered, we are in massive disconnect, right? And if we know we're hardwired for connection, and I'm gonna talk about what connection is, but if we know that we need it and we're triggered, there's a huge disconnect, and the other person feels it, and so you're putting their lid is kind of flipped. They're either gonna get angry, or they're gonna shut down, or they're gonna want to get the heck out of there, and what is that for getting things done or having a good relationship? No, it's not. And
so while we're worrying about
disempowering, I want to say that it's very disempowering when we're in that state and we're not taking ownership of it, and it's very disempowering for the other person.
So while we are worrying about this virus that's contagious, right, we also need to be worrying about our own emotional state and how that's contagious to other people too. Great. All right. So you've mentioned
really quick with that, because there's tons of stuff out there about the more we can be with our, work with our stress, it does increase the immune system. So it's hard because we are stressed, and then we don't want to get stressed about being stressed. And then the more we can just acknowledge, and I'm going to give you some tools today to walk away with to help you actually be with what you're feeling and work through it.
That's awesome. We've just talked about disconnection and what these triggers, the negative impact they have on us. I want to switch now, and I want to talk about connection and how important that is.
Absolutely. Connection is the antidote. It is. It's where I think Brene Brown says it so beautifully in her research on vulnerability and connection. And she defines it as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued with no judgment, and that they derive strength and support from the relationship. And I take it a little bit further in my work and talk about the 3 levels of connection, and that is within. Well, so we need to connect within and get to know these different parts of us, the positive and the parts of us that are triggered and need attention, right? To really connect and get to know that part of us, and also connect on that higher level, that spiritual level. It can be anything, whatever you want that to be. But it is very well known through research that when we have that spiritual connection, it helps calm and the nervous system and helps bring that safety, especially at a time that we're in now.
That is great. I was thinking about, you're talking earlier about those events in our lives that kind of replay themselves, right? In these triggers that we may not even be aware of, and how important it is to work through those things instead of just ignoring them, right? Because a lot of times when I'm overreacting, I may feel embarrassed or ashamed of that part of myself that's overreacting. And you have a different method for how we kind of move into those things that are upsetting us and triggering us. So let's shift now and talk about some strategies for dealing with this.
Absolutely. And I created the WAVE process as a way to create that connection and empowerment. And I created it at a time where I had done all my education and I studied all of this stuff, and my daughter was born, and I was like, talk about triggered. I was triggered all the time, and I couldn't show up the way I wanted to. I wasn't, my relationship wasn't great. My parenting wasn't great. I wasn't able to move my business forward, and my health was not doing so great. So I had to dig deep, and I was like, I need something more. I don't need a Band-Aid. I want the real deal of how to genuinely show up in a more calm way, in the way I want. And so I started trying things that weren't even in the book. Like I really, and it started working. Things started changing for me. And I sat on my bed one day and was like, well, what could I do if I really want to help people learn how to do what I'm doing and genuinely shift, not just act positive, right? Or, and then it came to me that I was learning to witness, accept, validate, and empower. And so that's what the WAVE process is. It is a coaching and communication tool that helps us move through these emotional triggers and master connection. It actually moves us from that triggered, disconnected place to a more empowered, connected, empowered place, and it helps our relationships and our well-being. So we can talk about what it really is.
Before you go into it, I just want you to give an overview to our viewers today about how you use the WAVE in just not only personal relationships, but in professional relationships and other contexts as well. So just to give us a little bit of information about, what you've been able to see with how this process has impacted others.
Yeah, absolutely. I started my career, working with the WAVE with families and in parenting. And I work a lot with families and kids and helping create that connected and empowered environment in the family unit. And also just with kids dealing with school and stress and transitioning also from high school to college. I help them build these skills and work and connect to what they're really wanting in life and help work through some of these emotional patterns. And I also work in the businesses with executives and their teams to be more productive and engaged and connected to what their goals are and what they're doing. And those are really the main areas, but I work with a lot of individuals also, just in general, who want to improve their life and experience something new. But we also are in the school system, and I have a nonprofit that Dr. Meg Hanshaw founded, and I'm vice president of the board. And we are in the school system with a curriculum that's called the Well Kids Now system, and the WAVE process is a big piece of that to help train principals and teachers and kids in this way of handling and increasing our IQ and handling, being more resilient and empowered.
It is such an important life skill. So, all right, let's give an overview of it. Let's kind of roll in and help people understand what they can do to build better connections, better relationships in their lives.
Okay, so I'll just give you the overview and then we'll go from there. So witness is the first, it's witnessing, and it's W, and it is becoming aware of what's going on inside you, and around you. And it is becoming aware of what you're really thinking and feeling underneath, right, the trigger. And what you're thinking, feeling, and sensing, and noticing, what's going on in your body when you're triggered, right? You get stressed, or you feel it, you get tense, right? Feel it. Becoming really aware of that, and knowing that, because I think we walk around in such a disconnected place, right? A lot of us are just like a head walking around, and so to learn how to become more aware of what's going on, what you're really thinking and feeling underneath, and with other people, what are they thinking and feeling maybe, and what's going on underneath their behavior, being more curious. I mean, witnessing really is about non-judging and stepping outside of your emotional reactions and watching what's actually going on, and being able to do that for other people also.
I think you just said something really important there, and I know I do know that our sound is a little bit wobbly. Hopefully, in the downloadable, it won't be. But you just said the word curious, and I think that's such an important word and non-judgmental. So, what I'm hearing you say is that when we are feeling those feelings, to set aside judgment about this is a bad feeling, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or whatever, and instead really ask yourself, right, what's really going on here? What am I really concerned about, or what's the other person concerned about? Yeah, I think that's
and you just hit it, to not be so self-judging that we're having it. Now you're moving into acceptance. Acceptance is allowing what is, and it is acknowledging and expressing what we're actually feeling and what's going on and what we're thinking with, and we may not like it. We may want to change it. We may, okay, that is true. That happens a little later, but right now we have to accept what is and the reality of what it is, and you can't bypass it.
no.
And it really can't, and you can try, but it always comes back around. And then other people, can you hold space and be present with what somebody else is, how they're showing up, even if you do not like it and you need to maybe set a boundary, and there's some things that need to change. If you keep blaming and controlling and just right, the other person shuts down, you're shutting down, there's no solution, there's no brainstorm, right? There's no empowerment there. It's just so. And then that's true, except I think is the hardest piece. We're not modeled how to do this, right? We are not modeled. But as you practice this, it gets easier for sure. And for sure. And when you see the benefit, then you're like, okay, I think I can do this more.
And say right now, the great thing is we all have an opportunity to practice, right?
Such a good time to learn to build our skill in witnessing all of the things we're talking about, to start to go within a little more and do some reflection, because things are changing, and we're being pushed to change, and we're heading into a new paradigm here, and we're moving towards more of a connected way of living and being, period. And we get to learn these skills. So acceptance is a huge piece. So can I allow what's going on within me, and when somebody else is in front of you and doing that, can I listen? Can I just hold space without getting so reactive, right? And the more you work with your triggers, the more that is easier. So do you want to, and then validation is the V, and it is about giving a heartfelt understanding to yourself and to others. So, why might I be feeling what I'm feeling based on what happened to me in the past? This is not victim mode. This is just really empowering when you start to get curious about and holding space and not judging yourself so much for getting triggered, and getting curious, like why might I be feeling this way? What does this remind me of anything? To get curious, and then give yourself what you're really needing. Like what do I really need right now? That's a practice, right? To learn to give yourself that, but we also need partnership. So we need that support, very much that empowered partnership to hold space and with somebody who is non-judgmental. But to give somebody else a heartfelt understanding, sometimes, right, that's very challenging right. But that is huge. If you want to help somebody get out of Triggerland and you want to find some solutions, give them a heartfelt understanding. See through their eyes, even if you don't agree, even if you feel like their reality is completely off. If you can calm down, listen, and really try to see through their eyes and reflect back to them with a heartfelt understanding, it really creates that calming of the nervous system, creates that connection, and then you automatically often move into an empowered place, which is the E, where you're embracing new, positive way of thinking and being and acting that's in alignment with your higher self, the way you really want to show up. And you're connected to your values. You and I were talking about this, right? You can your values.
Yeah, I think first of all, I'm gonna validate this process because I'm gonna tell you what I see when I'm with somebody who is in a really triggered state. If I can take a moment and really be with them and be present, not in a condescending way, right? Like, oh, it's all gonna be okay, you're all right, but really sit with them in that moment. You can visibly see what happens as their whole posture, their whole physiology changes. And,
Mhm.
we may need to take a few minutes and just kind of catch our breath, but then we can re-engage and come back and begin to problem solve. So I think it is incredibly helpful and a great skill to have, to be able to sit with somebody. We can't fix their problems, right? And that's I think oftentimes what I want to do is go to be the problem solver. But when somebody's in a triggered state, they need to be really able to problem solve themselves.
That's the goal, right? If and as we work through our triggers and help ourselves genuinely do that, we can hold that space. We can see and watch somebody else being triggered, and then really ask what might they be needing? What are they? And that's the empowerment phase for somebody else, right? What do you want? What are you really wanting? Get curious about what they're really wanting, and help them connect to that. And then you have a conversation, right, about finding win-win solutions. Or sometimes you can't find a win-win and you have to set boundaries, and you can do that in a connected way, though.
What I've learned in doing this process is that it used to be, with somebody who was triggered, that would trigger me too, right? I would feel an innate defensiveness or responsibility or obligation. And really, in working with you, Kim, and through this process, I've really learned the freedom that no, I don't. I can have my own feelings, and they can have their own feelings. And when we sit there and we can hold that space, that's a phrase that I learned from you, is to hold that space. Amazing things happen. So thank you for that gift. It's very empowering.
Oh, I'm so glad. I love working with you, and I feel the same about you with your work, what you have done for me and helped me walk through the most beautiful divorce. So thank you. I'm your biggest fan.
Oh,
So
all right. So we did talk about, you asked me, Jennifer, would you be willing to walk through a trigger? And I said, yes, I would be. So you want to we can kind of walk through.
yeah, I think it's helpful if you feel comfortable walking through one. I think it would help the people listening to give an example of what this kind of looks like in real time, because the wave is not linear, like witness, accept, validate. It's dynamic. We will kind of go through each of the phases at some different times, and so I think it would be great to show people kind of get a feel for it.
Yes. All right. So for those of you who know me, I am married. I've been married over 20 years, almost 21, and I have 3 children, 2 of whom are teenagers and 1 of whom is about to be a teenager. So my home is wrought with many opportunities to practice the wave process. This week, while Kim and I were preparing, my son, bless his heart, in high school, I got an absent notice from school that he had skipped school that morning. And of course, immediately it just, like, everything went off in my head. How can you skip school? School is coming to you. There's no excuse for you not to be in school right now. So there you go. There's a little example of what a triggered mom, Jennifer, looks like. And
it's fair.
Yeah. And so, yes, it kind of raised all of that, that fight mode of, wanting to attack my young.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're witnessing that you're triggered, right?
Yeah.
You're witnessing that you got tense, you got frustrated, you're trying to go into control mode, right?
Yeah.
That acceptance of what you're feeling, it's challenging, right? Like, if you were really to accept what you're feeling, like, let's look at what you're really thinking and feeling underneath the trigger. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
You're willing to be
in the trigger, I'm feeling like, he takes me for granted. He's not following the rules. And what am I going to do to punish him? I got to make this really hurt so he knows not to do anymore, right? Those are the mom things that are running in my head. in the witness.
Right.
So witnessing that, yes.
So yeah, so you're really witnessing that that's what you're actually thinking and feeling underneath. And you're doing that really, if you can, from a place of non-judgment. Just, wow, that's where I'm going, right? And so.
No, well, I mean, then I'm also feeling like, Jennifer, you can't say those things to him. Then I'm feeling a little bit of shame about.
Of course. And parenting, and let's face it, parenting brings up the most shame and guilt.
Yeah.
We're never going to be perfect parents. We are going to get triggered. Our kids bring up the most unfinished business for us. And that's just the way it is. And if we can look at it as a gift, honestly, these triggers can really be a gift. I know they don't feel good, but they can be a gift because it really shows us the part of us that needs attention and where we can learn and grow. And so, yeah, you definitely went there, right? And it does bring up shame. And so you could just acknowledge and accept that you feel, I mean, it does. But
one of the themes in my life of things that gets me really riled up is following rules, not following the rules, right? I'm a lawyer. I like rules. I'm firstborn. I got my parents' approval because I followed the rules, at least most of them. And so rule following is really important to me. And I know from working with you, like I'm just going to share with you all if that's okay. I'll go into that. But one of the triggers I sort of unpacked was that when I was a 6-year-old child, I was new at a school and we were playing a game of kickball. And I had never played kickball before. So I'm out in the field and I was probably supposed to be keeping second base. And nobody told me what the rules were. So I saw a kid kick a ball and he started running. And so I started running. And that kid on my team came over and punched me in the stomach, right? So in that moment, what I learned was that when you don't follow the rules, you get hurt. Or when you don't know the rules, you get hurt. So anytime I'm in a situation where there are rules and I'm uncertain about it, that 6-year-old child is right there with me. And we all have lots of those types of things, but I wouldn't have come to that awareness if I hadn't been working with you, Kim.
Absolutely. So now you're basically waving yourself. And so you can see, so if you're really witnessing that you're triggered by what is happening with him and you're accepting what you're thinking and feeling underneath it and you're letting it out. Wow, I'm really feeling like something could happen to him. I'm guessing, right? Something could happen.
Yeah.
Following the rules. I mean, you just named if you really just accept that looks like, wow, going within and going, wow, this is what I'm really feeling. Because what acceptance is yelling at him, right? And keep trying to control, right? And blame, right? So you can really accept that, wow, I'm really feeling this. And so of course you would feel this. See, now we're moving into validation.
Yeah.
I mean, you just listed off some really strong reasons. One, your upbringing. One, you follow the rules and what happened to you as a kid. All of that instilled a huge belief in you that it's not a good idea to not follow the rules. Like it actually, it makes you feel.
Yeah, and it makes me really angry when other people aren't following the rules, right? I'm social distancing. Why aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really turned up. This is what following the rules at a 50, great, right? Like following the rules, that's great. We're not saying you should never follow rules, but you're just really noticing and witnessing and accepting that it's turned up pretty high because it is a trigger for you. And so if you were giving yourself a heartfelt validation of why you're feeling that, you can connect to that part of you that would be turned up that way. Yeah. Right? Could you really connect to that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that, to not be judging it as that's a good thing or a bad thing, but to really just be with it. And what it does is it opens up for me the ability to be with my son, who in this moment, like I've got all this going on in here, but the truth is he's got all that going on in there, right? I mean, he's going through a lot of stuff right now too. And the last thing I want to do is isolate him from me. And instead, this is a time when we need connection more than ever. And
Absolutely.
And I will tell you that the conversation, while I was angry, and like you said, Kim, had every reason to be angry, what really needed to happen in that moment was a conversation about what do you need right now and what can I do to support you. And so we figured out a different schedule and a different plan and a different system of accountability. And I'm very happy to say that he made it to all of his classes yesterday. And so far, I think he's made it today.
So that's great. So you just gave an example of you're getting so great at this. You pretty much are waving yourself very quickly. And so, but what you needed, let's back up for the people who are listening and say, during that validation phase for you, you really needed to believe that, okay, wait a minute. You know what? Yes, I like yes, I like to follow the rules. And yes, I think he needs to be doing this, right?
Yeah.
But if I could calm my nervous system down for a second and say, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to find a solution here. We're going to work this out. It would calm your system down. That's you giving yourself what you need. And then you're like you said, it just opens the door a little bit to go, whoa, wait a minute. What might be really going on with him?
Yeah.
And how can I ask him with not all this energy and control? What is going on? What's happening? I'm really curious. Tell me more. Are you unmotivated right now? What's happening? And get really curious before you even jump into what you need.
Exactly. And you just brought up a really good point, because I think for so many of us, the natural tendency is to shift into control, right? When we feel angry or triggered or upset, we go into control mode.
Yeah.
And I know the one thing for sure is that anytime anybody tries to control anything I'm doing, that is automatic disconnection, right?
Trigger for me, I can tell you right now. Like, do not control me. I was controlled all my childhood. I'm like, I know it now.
And that's what I think is so great about this, is that we're learning different skill sets and different skills apart from what is so natural and hardwired, which is control and shame and trying to exert power over somebody else to get them to do what I want to do so I can feel safe, right? And that's not the point. The point is to learn to feel safe first.
Absolutely. And it's great to use the WAVE process to coach yourself, but what we really also need is what we call at WAVE Institute is empowered partnership, and being able to, and we do this through our trainings. My business partner, Dr. Meg Hanshaw, she and I are really good empowered partners, right? Like we hold space for each other, and we do in our trainings, we teach others to create that empowered partnership so they can actually do this, because this is normal stuff now. I mean, I think a lot of what we're talking about is not as much, this is coaching, right? This is more moving away from something's wrong with us and we're broken into this is normal. These things are normal. This is the human experience. So let's learn ways to really support each other in working through them. And when you're doing that, when you're having that empowered partnership, you don't take on other people's stuff. You stay, in your own center, but to hold space for each other is great. It's really.
And I will say, so much of this isn't natural. I mean, it isn't natural, right? It is something we need to learn. Although what's natural is the ability within us to do it, but it is training. And I think you offer such a valuable resource for people who need help. I mean, if anybody, I think everybody should, could use a little help on this. But definitely, Kim, you do a great job. So, I mean, yes. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I think that one of the things, no, I think I'm good right now.
Okay.
I had a few.
All right, we've got lots of guests, so I would love some feedback, even if you just want to throw us a comment or so. Thank you, Paula, for reporting awesome content. Obviously, Judy Knowles knows Kim well. Everybody needs the wave, so that is so true. And Judy also asked you, Kim, somebody's already asked if you're going to do more webinars after this.
Oh, of course. Now, especially with the way our world is right now, I definitely am going to do it.
That's awesome.
She's a big fan, and she's like, you need to do webinars. And so I definitely, and I coach people all over the world. I have clients in Dubai, and I use a lot of Zoom and Skype to coach. So that's very doable. And Jennifer, you had such a great idea with the corporate, my business teams and executives to help work with them right now virtually. I think we're all looking more towards doing virtual things.
We've got a couple of great questions here. So Diane asks, how can you determine what early past experiences have triggered negative emotional responses? How do you know that?
Well, you can guarantee if you're having a trigger and an heightened emotional response, that it is coming from that. We know that through neuroscience. This is very well understood now. It's become more and more. And if you're having that physical emotional response, it is coming from something in the past, a belief that is pushing up against, that's making you feel unsafe, not enough, I'm not heard enough, I'm not seen enough, we could go on and on. But you just know that is the case when you have that physical reactive mode. You might want to shut down. It's not all about getting mad. You might want to shut down, be quiet, right? So that's how you know it. You can physically feel it.
I want to say, Kim, in working with you, what you opened my eyes to were things, because I think the problem is that we're blind to those things. And you think, okay, I'll go back and think about all the pains I had when I was 5, but I don't really remember anything that was 5. One of the great benefits of working with a coach like you is really you being able to kind of lead that discussion. And it's not that you get, I know, like, I don't want people to think this is like where you go regressive therapy, where you go back and redo everything. You really don't. But what you're doing is you're looking at those wounds that just never healed, and you're opening them up for healing. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And we're doing it through the coaching framework. So, we don't go digging. We just allow what is up. You just pay attention to what's triggering you, and it will give you the answer exactly to what part of you is needing attention.
Yeah.
And so we just hold space for that part in our coaching to allow that part of you to be seen and heard and expressed. Yeah. And when that happens, you naturally start to move into integration. And so it's not all about reliving all the trauma, but it is about touching the emotion that is there and that is present, because it's basically like it's happening now when you're triggered. So you just,
yeah, well, because those emotions are now. I mean, you rise to them and set kind of your emotional framework back when you were developing, those events happened then, but those emotions that you're feeling right now are absolutely real and raw. And just gaining awareness and acceptance is so helpful. Bill Borg asks, this is an extremely unusual time when we're all on lockdown. The positive flip is that we have time to pause and look inside. What 5 things would you recommend opportunistically to do to make the most of this time?
Oh, thank you, Bill. Hi. Actually, meditation. Some people aren't that motivated to meditate right out of the gate. So little things, even just going in and scanning your body. Am I breathing? Simple things to just connect. And so that's one. Meditation and just really helps the brain and body open up your ability to witness, right? And to witness these triggers. So reflection, giving yourself time to do that. You can do it at night. Like some people don't want to just sit there and meditate, right? There's so many great things out there. Joe Dispenza is an awesome resource that he has meditations you can listen to on your headphones. It's guided. So that is a great way. So another thing is getting out in nature. Right now we're locked up. I get it, but we can get out in nature, and it is known in that nature. And we know this with kids with ADD and all kinds of stuff, that it helps them so much with their nervous system to get out in nature. Take off your shoes, walk in the grass, get out in nature. Connect as much as possible right now. Well, some of us don't want any more connection with we're a little too close, but so it's okay to ask for space, but connect with those around you. Right now we're having all these emotions, and we might even be together, but we're still feeling like, in shutdown mode. So connect through games, through online games with your family. You can play trivia. My next door neighbor, Lauren, was saying that her family played trivia, family trivia. So I thought that was great. And let's see.
I keep saying this, but hosting webinars has turned out to be a great tool for me to be connecting with a whole bunch of friends and colleagues and wonderful.
Yes.
So thank you.
Absolutely. It's such a great time. And Bill, to answer your question more, there's other things like this is a great time to tap into how to your creativity. If there's ever a time, I mean, a lot of people are talking about this, but to be creative, to write that book you haven't written, or to paint, or do things that you might not ever have thought you could do. This is a really great time. I'm cooking way more and being way more domestic than I've ever been in my entire life.
And doing more dishes. I think you're also embodying right now, Kim, something that I know is so, so important, which is humor, right?
That's a big one.
Yeah. Great questions. I just want to say thank you all. We've had some really good feedback. We have another question from Sky, who says, do you necessarily need to identify the event from your past that triggers you? Or is it enough to recognize that such and such triggers you and then acknowledge it and move through it?
You can just acknowledge what you're feeling, and that can help. I will say that our brain is wired it loves to kind of make sense of things. And so it does help a little bit to say, wow, why might I, but where does that come from? Or it does help to just be curious. You don't have to go digging for it. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come.
Right.
You can simply just validate what you're feeling and connect to it and let it be expressed in a certain way that's not destructive, right? And give yourself what you need, right? You can do that.
Absolutely. I think for me, sometimes it's been helpful to just, when I'm asking, why am I responding this way, is when I think it's helpful to spend a little bit of time and to go back. But I don't think it is necessary to relive every painful wound. I mean, the point is, when you're dealing with raw emotions, but there is a way to process it that works towards connection instead of disconnection. This is just awesome. Okay, well, I want to say thank you to everybody who showed up today, and I hope you found this meaningful. Y'all, like I said, are going to get a downloaded copy of it. Please share it. And people have asked how to get in touch with you, Kim. So I've got the Wave Institute website is up on the chat session. But what can you tell them about how to get in touch with you if they want to move deeper through some of these triggers?
Absolutely. And well, first of all, you can call me at 214-673-8436, and we can have a conversation and see about if this is a fit for you. And or you can email me at kim@waveinstitute.com.
Okay, great. That is
and I wanted to say one more thing if we have time.
Yes.
about my my desire, my heartfelt desire, and it really shows up in my nonprofit to help these young kids develop these skills early on, because we know as adults it's more challenging, right, to do it later. And at ibme.org, we are doing that, and we're in the schools starting to implement this training with these kids and doing camps, and we're doing this movement, educational movement, because I think it's a really important place to house and help these kids learn these skills early on.
Yeah.
And shift that environment of education where kids are more connected to what they're doing and being able to connect with each other. And so it's just a huge place in my heart. So
that is great. Well, again, I just want to say thank you to everyone. If you know anybody who is in a difficult relationship right now, or who has questions about maybe the current custody situation, I also want to let you all know that we're offering a special COVID consultation, and you can get more information about that on my website, and we would be happy to talk with them and help put together a safety plan or talk about what their options are, because people do have options while this isn't a normal time in the world of litigation. People do have options, and so if you all can help us spread that word, that'd be great. Thank you again, Kim. This has been really awesome.
Jennifer, thank you for what you're doing and really supporting your community.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm blessed to have a fabulous community, so you're part of that. Thank you.
Thank you for everybody listening today and to share this information. And my heart and prayers are with you at all times.
Mine too. Thank you.
Bye.